Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the legal show on SIKH Channel. I'm very pleased to be joined by a senior lawyer, Kulwinder Kaur, who is an employment law specialist. And without further ado, I will let Kulwinder introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her particular area of expertise. This is not a legal advice show, it's not a call-in show. It's more about profiling lawyers in our community and discussing their area of practice and how the law works. So, Kulwinder, thank you very much for joining SIKH Channel's legal show.
Thank you so much, Davinder. It's a pleasure to be here. So I specialize in employment law and I represent businesses. So I deal with respondent matters only. And that's from inception, from when we receive the claim form all the way through up to trial and anything in between, really, ongoing advice, any negotiations, any potential settlements.
Tremendous. So it seems you're extremely busy. You have to do a lot. And I know that as a solicitor myself, whilst I'm non-practicing, I have practiced for many years. I know that solicitor's role and job is extremely demanding and difficult, and more so now. Clients are very demanding. There's pressure on fees. You can't charge the fees that you want. You can't spend the time that you want. You have to do more for less. Why would anybody become a solicitor?
Well, despite the pressures, there it is a very rewarding job as well. You know, knowing that you're making a difference to people's lives um, is quite something to be proud of. And for me, it's my purpose in life, being able to serve my clients and making that difference. So whilst it is challenging, it's equally rewarding as well, knowing that you are making a difference, when particularly when clients are coming to you in difficult circumstances.
That's tremendous. So you're driven by passion and a desire to help people, which is extremely inspiring. And in your line of work, you actually help employers, you work for business, whereas I've always worked for lay people, for the public, for consumers, for ordinary people. As a solicitor, I always represented clients against big business. You're on the other side of the fence. You help businesses defend claims in employment law tribunals.
Yes, that's right. I have been on the claimant side, and now I've gone over to the respondent side, often referred to as the dark side. Um, and it's 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 a interesting idea to do both aspects, and the clients are equally in need, and often there are claims that have been brought without merit. So it's about really keeping the settlement award quite low, or if we can apply for strikeout applications, so that the case is dealt with efficiently and doesn't go all the way to trial, then that's exactly what I try to do with those cases.
Because nobody likes to go to court. Court is always seen as the last resort, and people want to settle out of court, especially businesses. They don't want the adverse publicity. They don't end up in court with the ex-members of staff and so on. And are businesses under pressure? Are they often forced to settle, even if they are not liable?
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty that businesses, my clients, face is often that there may be witnesses who have left the business, and it's quite hard to then prove the case without those key witnesses. Those witnesses can be compelled to attend tribunal, of course. However, um, it may be that a lot of time has passed and they're not seen as so credible anymore. And often it's a case of really balancing um, the business's time, effort, energy in trying to defend these claims, which can quite quickly become very expensive. And, businesses should be there working on their business and not having to spend so much time and energy in defending these matters. So it's always advisable, if the matter can be settled, to do so as soon as possible.
Prevention is better than cure. Anybody starting out with a new business may not be thinking about employment law tribunals, something that they don't wish to think about, they wish to avoid. But are there things that a new business can do early on to make sure that they prevent legal difficulty with staff?
Yes, absolutely. The key tip I would give to startup businesses is to really make sure that you have all your legal documents in place, i.e., making sure that your employees have employment law contracts, there's policies in places, there's handbooks in place, really making sure that all your paperwork is ready at the get-go so that you prevent any disputes arising.
That's tremendous. Thank you. And obviously, cost is an issue because a new business can't afford expensive legal fees. Are there more cost effective ways of putting in place the right procedures for a new business?
Yes, I mean, a lot of clients do look to obtain insurance, and it's a good idea to make sure that you do have adequate insurance in place. And in saying that, it's very important that the insurer is updated as to any potential claim, or even where there's a grievance or a disciplinary process, which is going to be progressing shortly, or potential grievance or disciplinary, on the cards. So it's important to seek that advice from the insurance as soon as possible, so that any potential cover is not invalidated. And it's also critical to follow all advice that the insurer does provide at each step of the ongoing claim. Otherwise, businesses won't be covered for any potential awards or even legal cost. So I would I would 100%, recommend insurance from the outset.
Insurance is always a good idea. That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you, Kulwinder. And what are the common mistakes that businesses make? What are the usual areas where they trip up and get it wrong, which you can perhaps share with us?
It would have to be not taking detailed notes of any meetings, any discussions, and, not really having that paper trail to show what's gone on, and not having adequate policies in place or handbooks from the start. There may be historical ways of doing things, and the law is changing all the time, and it may be that some things have been overlooked by previous management. So it's very important to have all your paperwork in place, and ensure that you're following your own procedures and your own policies, and making sure that any grievances are tackled early on, to ensure that there aren't any problems later on where claims are being issued against the businesses.
That's tremendous. Thank you. And following on from that, what can employees do on the other side of the fence? What can they do to ensure that they are protected and they have a strong claim if they are treated badly?
For employees, it's critical that they raise a grievance as soon as possible. They may initially want to do so on an informal basis and speak to their management or their next line in command, and really document as well. If, say, for example, there's potential bullying and harassment claim ongoing, really to keep a key note of all the dates, what was said, by whom, if there was any potential witnesses. So again, it's just making sure that you have that paperwork, because memories will often fade, and later on, when you're compelled to provide a witness statement to support the allegations you're making, it's critical to have all that information to hand. So keeping a diary is really going to help with having that memory in terms of what happened and when.
Has the pandemic affected employment law tribunal claims, whether it is businesses defending or claimants bringing them? Has there been any change because of the pandemic? Have there been less claims or more claims or different types of claims?
Yes, in terms of the impact that the pandemic has had, I would say that we are seeing a great deal of more discrimination claims at the moment. And, particularly in the healthcare sector, where initially the government weren't so clear on the guidance, and that had a knock-on effect with businesses and the way that they were treating potential employees who, had issues at the time, or potential redundancies. And, that's had a huge impact. So we're beginning to see some more of those types of claims coming through now.
That's great. Thank you very much. And have you adopted a different type of strategy for those claims? Are there any good reasons for an employer to deal with those claims differently because of the pandemic? For example, gathering evidence because a lot of companies have been closed, or they're given more time by the tribunals to deal with these cases.
In terms of that, there is new case law which, businesses are now having to take into account when responding. So this is currently something new which, has changed the way we're dealing with these cases and really changed the strategies in how to resolve them. So this is currently a new area, or a new aspect which is now recently coming through.
And anybody who wants to become an employment lawyer, what are the do's and don'ts? If anybody wants to become an employment law specialist like you,
Mhm.
what do they need to do and what should they avoid?
I think in terms of what they should do is make sure that they're keeping up to date with all the recent case law, and also reading as much articles, updates as possible, because this is an area of law which is constantly changing. So it's important to keep up to date, and there's often something new coming up. So it's just juggling that in line with your current work as well, and making sure that you're speaking to colleagues, because they may have had a recent case where they're able to provide that update to you, without you having to go and research that. And things to avoid um, would be not to assume a case which at the outset looks like it's got good merits, and then later transpires that actually, as the evidence comes out, it's not got so much good merits anymore. So it's about constantly checking the merits and assessing the merits as the evidence comes through, particularly after witness statements have been exchanged. So the cases can turn very quickly. And on the flip side, there could be a case which you initially assessed as not having good merits, which then does actually turn out to be quite a strong case.
Can you tell at the start of a case, how often can you, from your experience and expertise, be able to say, yes, this case is going to win or this case is going to lose? Can it be black and white at the start?
Often you get a gut instinct based on the evidence and the paperwork that's initially been provided, but clients don't always have all documents to hand. And sometimes the key people you need to speak to are not always available. So you can usually make an initial assessment, but that does change as the case progresses and you begin to get more information. So it's not always black and white. It really depends on the individual facts of the case and the paperwork that's available.
That's tremendous. Kulwinder, thank you very much for joining us. I want you to share your final thoughts with us about employment law. It's an important area of practice because it's an important area of life. We all do get working as an integral part of our faith, working honestly, working fairly, and working is a part of all economic life and successful societies. Whether you're working or whether you're employing workers, you're also working as a business owner. Often they have to work much harder. And so work is so important, and you practice in an area of law which governs most people's lives. It's an area of responsibility. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. What I would say with when businesses are faced with potential problems in the workplace or even potential claims, is to really seek legal advice as soon as possible, because some of these cases don't necessarily need to go all the way. And a lot of businesses say it's a matter of principle. And what I would say to them is it's a question of really balancing that up. Would you rather be spending money in defending a matter which could be settled for something small, for a couple of £100 sometimes? And it's always a good idea to keep potential settlement, even if it's on a commercial basis, in mind, as much as it may be a matter of principle for some business owners.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful views and thoughts. I'm sure lots of businesses will take note, employers, but also employees who need to seek assistance can gain assistance from appropriate lawyers. Thank you very much, Kulwinder Kaur, employment law specialist, acting for business, helping employers deal with employment law claims. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, and we hope to speak to you again. And we may invite some business owners to join us next time and talk about some of the issues they face. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.